Hello and welcome to this episode 5 of the rEView podcast. So, today I have a guest that I feel needs no introduction, but without further ado, I introduce Tanina Arab. So, Tanina, I'll hand over to you and you can tell us a bit about yourself, where you have been, and where you are now.
My God, where to start? Well, first of all, thank you so much, Natalie, for having me. I think it's a fun initiative, and congratulations on that. I can't wait to see all the episodes and follow this podcast and see where it is heading up. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm Tanina. No, I'm not a postdoc anymore. I'm a faculty now at Yale University. I'm associate research scientist. So I'm working in a lab slash core, which is actually really interesting, because we do a lot of stem cell kind of research for protocol improvement, for implementations and things like that. But we also do a lot of service in other PIs in the Department of Neuroscience. And it's really fun because it's another aspect of science jobs that I was not really familiar with as someone that did a PhD in Europe. So it's been a lot of fun. I started this position now for a month. I know it's like kind of the honeymoon phase, but so far I like it. And also like a big change this year was to embrace the motherhood life. So it's actually strange because I'm sleeping less but laughing more.
Yes, this
So
is the stage where everything comes together at once. It seems like, yeah, you've had a lot of changes in the past
oh
12
my God.
months. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I would say, I don't know why I did that to myself, but everything was centralized in May of this year. So, wrapping up in the work in my previous position, where there is still some work to do, but at least like leaving and then going to maternity leave and then moving with a newborn and starting a new life, all of this within like 2, 3 months. So, but
amazing. Yeah,
yeah.
my hat is off to you. Look at you go. It seems like, so let's just go back a little bit. So you did your PhD in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came to do a postdoc at
Mm-hmm.
Johns Hopkins,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing. And now you're at Yale. See, and you did that just after having a baby. Like this is
Yeah.
all, it seems like a lot. So, um, can you tell me about like the transitions between each one and what that was like for you and like
Sure.
a bit of insight for people who might be thinking about doing similar things? Like what was all of that like for you?
I would say plan less and jump more. Because everything I planned for, at the end of the day, I didn't went with the plan, but I went with the more spontaneous opportunities that I had. So, so there is actually, yeah, four transitions, I would say. So the first transition was from bachelor degree to master slash PhD, and I went from Algeria, where I'm born and raised, to France. Okay, so this was, I would say, the least complicated transition because I'm fluent in French. I have family there. It was not far away from home. Um, and the thing is, I was kind of hitting a wall in Algeria in terms of studies. Like, if I would stay there at that time, at least when I was graduated, I would have stopped at bachelor degree, and I didn't want to stop at bachelor degree. I wanted to get more education, so it just didn't make sense for me to actually leave to pursue this. And then I wanted like a French speaking country because I was fluent in French. So I went with France, and then, of course, you go through the application process and all of this. But I think this one was like went as planned. Like I planned ahead. applied to several universities, got accepted, and then just like planning the move and going. But I went for a master's degree initially. Sorry, I went for a master's degree initially. So I got my master, and then after that, like during the master itself, we had like 6 months where you need to do research in like a lab, in academic lab setting, and then write the report at the end about what you learned and what you researched, and if there is any like piece of data that are exciting to share. And at this point, I kind of discovered fun that one can have at the bench when investigating a scientific question. So I kind of drifted a little bit from the initial plan where it was, okay, I'm going for my master and then I'm going to work in a biotech and call it a day, and being like this working girl life. But then I really liked my project. I liked my PI. So we talked in order to see if there is a possibility to have a fellowship and just go with a PhD thesis. So I applied for a fellowship at the university and I got it. So we were like, okay, we have 3 years of funding. What can we do in 3 years? And this is where I started doing EV work and knowing the society, like the International Society for Extracellular Vesicles. And it was, all this was back to 2015. So the field was not young, but was not old either. Like it was 5-6 years. Things started to be established, but we didn't had back then so many position papers or resources online or courses or things like that. But then at my second year, I did the EV course at the EMBL at Heidelberg, which is still going, which is amazing. And I also attended my first international conference, like the ISAN International Conference in Rotterdam, where I really get to know the people, the leadership, and I'm like, oh, I really like that. And also, like, I really appreciated how people were willing to help. So, and this is where I was a little bit bold, in a sense, where I was just like, just a second year PhD student, but I didn't somehow, was not ashamed to approach people. Like I talked with Dr. Van Yale, for instance, Guillaume Van Yale, and I asked him to be part of my thesis committee. Something where today, thinking about it, I should have talked to my PI, and my PI would have talked to Dr. Van Yale. Not like, oh, you stopped by my poster, let me invite you to be in my thesis committee. But then sometimes you just need to like be yourself, I would say, and just like forgot about the politics and the hierarchy and all of this. So I was very naive. And then at the end of my PhD, I like started applying for postdocs, but mainly in Europe because I was married back then. My husband was working in Europe, and I was like, let's just stay here, and we're like closer to go home, visit our parents. But then I got this opportunity at Johns Hopkins, and of course I could not turn it down. I thought about it, of course. I was like, oh, it's far away, it's blah, blah, blah. But then it's Johns Hopkins, and it was a leading lab in the EV field. So I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. But then initially it was just for 2 years because the time of the grant was 2 years. And COVID hit, and then more grants come to the lab, more projects. And then I found myself like doing a 5-year postdoc. So it's just like, I think it's good to be flexible. Like, to long story short, to answer your question about what someone that wants to pursue a career in science should do. I think there is not a magic like step-by-step protocol. It's not like you one can be creative about the path, and there is not like a straight line path. It's all up and downs. It's all like, let me try this and see if that's something that fits me, that I'm happy. Let's try this environment. Some environments are can be amazing for someone but really bad for someone else, because we are not looking for the same things in a work environment. So I would say it's good to plan. For sure you have to plan, because there is deadlines for applications, there is deadlines for opportunities and for everything, but it's also good to keep an eye open and see what else is out there. And if there is an opportunity that comes your way, maybe just for a second, just try to consider it, and like not being rigid about, oh no, I didn't plan this, so no thank you, you know. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard to plan the future. It's so unpredictable. Like, who planned for COVID?
Impossible.
No one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You actually you can't. I think you're very correct. You just kind of have to be open to opportunity, to unexpected things happening. Like it's okay to have a rough idea, but I feel like the more you plan, the more it goes off plan, I find anyway. So totally. So so you said you did this like 5-year stint at Johns Hopkins, and then you've had your baby. So what was it like transitioning from like fully work committed to now also having family considerations?
Yeah. Well, I think I was like, um, you know, it's not balanced, because there is not only work and only family in life. There is more. So we need the scale with multiple buckets where we can put stuff. But for sure, like work and family is something that takes a lot of out of our time. But there is like also self love and self maintenance and other things we do on the side. But I was reaching a point where I really wanted kids. And also I was reaching a point in my career where I didn't want to be a postdoc forever, you know? So I was looking for opportunities to grow and opportunities to branch out also a little bit from the EV field. Like I love the EV field, obviously. This is why I worked so hard, like since 2015 in this field. Even established a course with Uta to teach new beginners in the field. But then I also, like, you know, how you want to feed your creative brain and be like, okay, I'm in this little bubble that starts to become a comfort zone. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. I know the people that are working on this field. Like, of course, there is always something to learn about. There is always something aspect of extracellular vesicles that I have no clue about. But I really wanted to branch out a little bit and like try something new and see if how am I going to, you know, to perform. Am I going to be able to replicate what I did with the EV feed and like finding my spot. And and I thought about stem cells because I worked on neurodegenerative diseases, and one of the main problems that we have in this neurodegenerative diseases umbrella is that we have a lot of animal models, but then when drugs are tested for Alzheimer's or Parkinson's on animal models, amazing, they work, but then when they are in clinical trials and we try to replicate these results with humans, where most of the clinical trials are failing because a mouse is not a human, right?
Yeah.
So one way to overcome this struggle is to use induced pluripotent stem cells, where you can have them directly from fibroblasts or from humans, and then you can differentiate them into whatever, into neurons, into microglia, into astrocyte, and then try to have an in vitro system that is closer to the in vivo system, at least human to human. So I was looking towards that, and same thing. It always starts with the same thing. It's networking. So I started reaching out to people working with stem cells and trying to build a network, and where the field is at, where are the key labs, and where all of this is going, and then simultaneously being on the market, simultaneously growing a belly with the baby inside of it. But I mean, it was a tough year for sure, for other reasons. But it was also very, very rewarding, because it's exhausting, but it's a lot of fun as well. So watching this human being growing, even at my appointment, I was a little bit nerdy. Like I was like, oh, and this is the cerebellum, and this is this, and this is the spinal cord, and the nurses were like, usually we got moms that are just crying and like happy to see like or to hear the heartbeat of their baby for the first time, and you're doing all the anatomy. I was like, yeah, sure, but it's just like imaging is something that I like, so
yeah. Well, seeing is believing. That's, that runs true here as well.
Yeah. So I applied for jobs, and one of them was this one at Yale, and I got the offer, and then it was also like, I had to think about it for a second, because I'm like, moving to a new city with a newborn is not fun. But again, you have to do what you have to do. So just making the jump.
And, I can relate. Obviously, I've just relocated myself and my husband and my 2 children, not babies, but, each age comes with its challenges. So, yeah, but I mean, with regard to, so moving from the EV field now going to, stem cells at Yale, and not being tied to a postdoc anymore. So you said you're faculty. So what does that mean? What are the implications of that? I mean, are you just continuously employed? Do you have to apply for grants? Like what's the scope of that position?
Sure. So basically, I am involved in multiple projects. I don't have like a sole, project like, or projects like we have on a postdoc, where you are the leading scientist and you have to be on top of the literature. You have to indeed try to apply for grants to get more money, presenting at conferences. Like, this is what we do as a postdoc, right? In this particular position as a research associate, I'm working with multiple postdocs and grad students and PIs in different labs, where I help them specifically in one point of their project. So they are the ones, I would say, thinking about the story, about the big picture, and I'm helping them specifically for their needs in XYZ cell type, using iPSCs that they want. And just the setup that we have here, so far there is no need to apply for grants, because like it's like a system where it's the grants coming to the department that are like feeding the core. So far I'm just focusing on the science. I'm focusing on how best to help the people using this facility. And obviously, when down the road, when the papers will be written and all of this, I have to shim in and see, like, is the method accurate? Are the results well interpreted? Are the cells well used? And are the conclusions accurate based on the cells that we have been using. So I would say it's less stressful than a postdoc so far, because you don't have to make all the decisions and like be on top of everything yourself. But in a sense, it's a little bit more strict, I would say, where it's like you want to do your best in a way that you please the people that you are actually giving the material to, and the material needs to be high standard. So it's a different pressure. Yeah, let's sum it this way. It's different pressure, but it's not the same kind of work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's, I think, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but my opinion after doing like PhD, it's like you think there's two options. You do academia or you do industry. And if you stay in academia, you do a postdoc and then you want to become a PI. But it's interesting, even since being in the US, finding out that there's actually quite a lot of variety of what you can do still within the academic system. Not all postdocs have to go on to be group leaders. You can find these faculty positions, so many staff scientist jobs. Like it's actually, it's reassuring to know, because I think, you hear about all these stories of like these like academic faculty positions where you actually like are becoming like a PI, how absolutely competitive, low success rates, and all you hear are all these like stacked up negatives, and you think, well, like what is my future career prospect going to be like? But actually obviously there are others, because not everyone goes on to do PI. And I have found that a bit of a relief since being here, to know that there are other options and it's not just you hit a wall and you can't kind of proceed. So
yeah, definitely. And I think from an international, from an immigrant perspective, it's even harder. Like you touched base on the competition, but for us, it's also the visa thing. So you can definitely have a faculty position, but then the UCIS can say no, right? And then you don't have your visa, and then you have to have another option. But then I think it's really important what you're mentioning. Like we need to go away from this binary kind of system where it's either industry or either PI, and that's it. But there is so many careers still using science skills, still doing science, but not the way it has been kind of described for us. Yeah, definitely.
Like it's so obviously like I know you're like venturing out into new territory, which is a great thing to do. Get extra skills, build on what you've already established and then try and take it somewhere new. But also, like, what are your plans? I mean, you've spent so much time in the EV field, built, as you say, like networking, but also all your work that you've done. And the course, the UVA course, that was great. Such a good thing to do with Uta. So, can you tell us a little? I know you've already been on like the SNEV podcast and you've spoken about the UVA course, but just like tell me a little bit about that for anyone who didn't catch that. And also, like, do you plan to still keep a foot in the door and being involved in these aspects of the EV field that you've obviously done so well at?
Definitely. So exclusively for you, Natalie, we're doing the second session. Yeah, we're doing. No, we're going to advertise it soon. Actually, we're doing a second round of this course, because, as you mentioned, it was beyond our like expectations. We heard a really good feedback from the participant, and we thought that it would be actually kind of stupid to not doing it at least one more time and see if we can replicate this success. So we are working behind the scenes to do it another time this year. I mean, in 2022. But definitely, I'm not leaving or closing the door to the EVs. I'm more gaining skills on another field to actually complement this. And I'm still like looking. I mean, long term, I didn't give up 100% on having my own lab. Maybe not an academic setting, because I don't like the fact that you even get your salary from grants. That I think it's really stressful. And although I like some stress, like good positive stress, but not being able to pay my bills or my house or something like that is not productive stress for me. I can be very quickly paralyzed if I cannot put food on the table for my family. Um, so yeah, being in a leadership position where I can have a group and just having a healthy environment, very supportive, and where we can do science without worrying about XYZ. This is like long-term perspective, kind of. But short-term perspective, of course, I just started here, so I'm learning this job as well because it's really new for me. But then we're doing still this course with Uta, so actively working behind the scenes to offer it again. It's, as you mentioned, like we did a podcast about it, but just to sum it up, it's basically a hands-on 1 week long course where we have lectures in the morning and hands-on in the afternoon. So last year, what we did was basically dividing, like we had a cohort of 20 students, and we divided them into 3-4 groups each time so they can rotate from one station to another. And we had like a theme of the day. So one day it was like particle counting, and one day was all like omics, and one day was flow. But this year we may do something slightly different where ahead of time before people apply, they can tell us what specifically they want to get deep training on. So we can make sure that these people will have enough time at this particular station rather than just like seeing a little bit of everything, but more deepen their training on a specific thing because I don't know, perhaps their PI plan to buy an NTA instrument.
Makes sense. And like, to be honest, like you need the overview so you have like a basic grasp of each technology, but then there are going to be people who have access to one particular type or are interested in pursuing one particular type. So I think it totally makes sense. And like, to be honest, then you're opening it up to people who are not just new to the field, but people who have perhaps been involved in a while but want to build more advanced skills in those areas too. So honestly, I think it's such a great initiative. I hope you keep it up even after next year, although obviously entirely up to you and Uta. And I would only hope that similar things could be adopted in other places and more frequent. I think this is the general feedback from the community, especially the ECRs. It's like they want more hands-on learning opportunities, and it's not that easy to come by unless you're in an institution where there are experienced groups that you can go and sit in with and learn. And to be like, if it's in the same institution, it's okay, but some people are having to go to other universities, and then it gets a little bit iffy because not everyone's willing to help and share as much. Although I have to say, in the EV field, we are quite amazing at being helpful. Like, you can send an email to people and they'll reply to you whether they know you or not. So I just, so I have appreciation for what you and Uta are doing. I think it's great. And so, yeah, please keep up the good work as long as you can.
Yeah,
Um,
no, definitely.
so I guess like you mentioned like long-term goals already. Do you see yourself traveling back home or to Europe, or are you quite stable in the US for the long term? I know it's a difficult question to ask, I guess.
No, I mean, yeah, it's again, it's like planning the future, right? I think, well, it depends how we define long term. I think, of course, it's a mutual decision. Like with my husband and now our daughter, we need to see her best benefits as well. But I think for at least 5 to 6 years, we kind of picture ourselves still here because there is so many opportunities in science, and there is so much I can keep doing. But then it all depends how the world will evolve. I think I have like some deeper values that needs to be met in any country. So I can picture myself in that country for long term. So far we're like okay here in the US meeting these values, but then anything can happen that is like outside of our control, where yeah, we would just make the decision to leave because it's not working anymore, because these values are not met. So yeah, I think we'll see what happened in November, and then how the US is evolving. But in terms of work, yeah, there is so much. Like there is so much that can be done, and so many opportunities in science that I don't see a reason why I would like to leave for now. But then this is not the only thing that kind of feeds the decision. There is much more
Yeah,
behind
there's
it.
lots of factors as always. Life is not so straightforward, I
Yeah,
understand.
no.
So it sounds so just going back to how it turned out that you did your PhD, it sounds as though like that wasn't on the cards for you from the outset. Obviously, you were going to do masters and maybe go and get a biotech job, as you say. So going back even further, what was it like for you growing up? Did you always have an interest in science or research or just inquisitive mind, or was there anything that kind of stood out for you as to how you even got to the master's stage? Like what led you there?
I think this is where role models are really important. So I always loved science, like even like high school, middle school. Like this was the class that I appreciated the most. I remember like having some classes where we do, surgeries to see all the organs and all of this. I was always very excited for these classes. And just like having an interest for pathologies in general and understanding what's wrong, what's going on, why this is happening. But then initially I wanted to go to med school. So I was like, I'm going to be a medical doctor, taking care of patient, and very thankfully very soon in my education, I figured that I am very sensitive, and I cannot actually, because of the high empathy that I have, and sometimes without even talking to people, just looking at them, I see something is wrong, or I see someone crying, I cry systematically. So I'm like, I would be miserable in med school because obviously when people come to see the doctors because something is going, like something is bad, um, and you may bring like very bad news to families and patients, and I'm like, I would be miserable, I would not be happy. So I thought, okay, what can I do with a science background that is still like can help patients indirectly or can humans in general, and obviously like research, yes. And then when I was at the university in Algeria, I had this amazing professor, Dr. Hawali Karim. I'm saying his name because he deserves all the credits. So he was teaching us an immunology class, and he will come to the amphitheater just with like a chalk and like the board, and like everything was in his mind. So he will like do the lecture, drawing and explaining, and I was just like so fascinated by this skill. So I asked him to be my supervisor for the the exam that we had to pass at the end. And I quickly learned that he was also doing research abroad, you know. And I'm like, okay, I want to be like Dr. Hawali. This is like my future me wants to be like him. So I think this kind of like feed my interest to science. Um, and we're still talking. We're still keep in touch 10 years after I left this university. But
Wonderful.
yeah, this is how I get to research.
Yeah, so and this is one thing I notice about you. I think it's probably the trickle down effect. I feel the same that you treat people that way too, Tanina. Like every interaction you seem to like you understand and you are supportive, and I see like you are happy to interact with people who you don't really know but still happy to support them in whatever way you can. So
Oh,
um
thank you. I
I
didn't know that it was so obvious.
no, it's just yeah, something I've noticed, and I feel like, credit where credit is due. So, um, do you feel like that particular instance with your supervisor was kind of key in helping shape those qualities in yourself, or even perhaps family members as well?
I think it's you know how we say we are the average of the people that we interact the most with. So I think definitely my family, I was educated always in the respect of others, always in putting your feet in other people's shoes as well. Also very like I grew up until like the age of what? I left when I was 24. So a very small village in the middle of nowhere in the mountains where everybody knows everybody, and where this respect of the elders, this just like respect, dialogue, you know, and relationships. And also because of my religion, I am Muslim, and this is what we are taught as well, to always respect others, to always talk in a manner that um, is that is not hurtful, you know, because at the end of the day, you may be upset about something, but the following day would not be so important. What about the following week or the following year or the following 10 years, you know? It may mean nothing. When if you say a bad word, or like you are very upset and you scream on someone, the impact of that may stay with this person for a very long term, and maybe you will not even know about it, right? So it's just important for me to be really mindful about my interactions, and like just trying at least to live a positive. I'm pretty sure that I am someone else toxic person, or someone else, you know, because we are all the bad person for someone, but at least trying not to be, you know. And it's also because I think throughout either personal life or professional life, I have seen this bad behaviors. I have seen people mistreating others around me. And I just don't want to replicate that because I see the damage, because these people may come to me crying, saying, hey, you know what this person taught to me, that today I was taught I'm stupid. Like, or I am a bad scientist, or I am this, or I am that. And I'm like, yeah, like that sucks. Like, we are in each other's life for a short period of time and then we move on. And why not making it as positive as possible,
I'm quite sure you are not a toxic person for anyone, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, that's a very good way to be, and I think yes, you hit the nail on the head, especially these high pressure environments. It doesn't bring out the best in a lot of people, so more mindfulness is definitely a good thing to be aware of, considerate of other people. So I like to finish off with this question, because I think as much as there are some very interesting developments in the EV field that has everyone's attention, you never really know what people are going to say until you ask for them. So my question to you is, what do you think is the future or the most exciting thing in the EV field that's coming up?
Oh, that's a tough question. The most exciting thing, I think, the therapeutic applications and using EVs as carrier that potentially can cross barrier, including the blood-brain barrier, and deliver specific drugs to specific tissues. If we can achieve that, if we can fully understand how to send these shuttles where we want them to go, that would be huge. And this is, I think, very exciting because everybody, or like every involved lab, is like working the small piece of the puzzle to make it happen. And I'm confident that at some point it will happen. But will this take 10 years or 5 years or a month? That's the question. Like, we don't know, but we just need to keep going and keep moving the needle. I think this is definitely the most exciting, at least from my perspective, because it will benefit so much the patient and a very broad range of pathologies and cases, and that will be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's like the Human Genome Project, except it's the Human EV Therapeutic Project. Like, it feels like, as you say, there's so many different labs working on different pieces of the puzzle, and it's still a race to the finish line, though. But I would be so excited to see who gets there first, and then how quickly other things start to evolve after that. It could be a real breakthrough. So Tanina, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Yes, let's say goodbye to our listeners. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for having me.